I mean, I'm sure. Oh, yeah. There's a whole section called The Bodies. When we get to that chapter, I'll just go ahead and play it safe. I won't show that chapter. I'll just let you hear the audio.
A few weeks later, friends and relatives begin to worry. No one has heard from Igor or any of the other members of the group. On February the 26th, the search party is finally able to locate the camp on the slope. The tent is in scrambles, covered by a thin coat of snow. The hikers' belongings and equipment was found orderly placed inside the tent, but the tent itself had been slashed open with a knife from the inside.
Whoa.
The next day, 9 pairs of footprints lead the search volunteers down the slope towards the nearby woods. The footprints could be tracked for about half a kilometer from the tent until the trail was completely covered by snow. So they continued in the direction of the trail and under a large cedar tree at the edge of the forest, next to the remains of an improvised campfire, they found the frozen bodies.
Alright, let's just not take any chances.
Of Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonoshenko. It would take over 2 months for the bodies of all 9 hikers to be recovered. The first 2 were found severely underdressed. No jackets, no pants, no gloves, hats, boots or anything else one might expect given the frigid climate. Only light shirts, underpants and socks. At the time of their death it would have been around 30 degrees below zero. The cedar tree had signs of damage as if someone had climbed it, with branches broken up to 5 meters high. Perhaps they were attempting to locate a tent in the pitch black darkness,
XQC watched that. That's like one of the first things that comes up when you type in Dyatlov.
Or something. The last 4 hikers were found at the bottom of a small hill, covered by 3 meters of snow, 75 meters from the tree.
Again, a lot has come out about this over the last few months from what I remember.
3 of them had sustained lethal injuries. 2 had also been found with gaping eye sockets, and one of the women had a missing tongue. The last of the 4 had a broken nose and a deformed neck, but died of hypothermia. The most mysterious of all, 3 articles of clothing were later found to be abnormally radioactive. On May the 28th, the criminal case was discontinued with a cryptic and incredibly vague conclusion. The lead investigator writes in the final report, "The cause of death was an unknown compelling force which the hikers were unable."
Real quick though, again, I'm gonna double check, but I'm pretty sure there was a huge Dyatlov Pass breakthrough recently. Yeah, I believe, I won't spoil it. Well, this kind of spoils it. But yeah, you know.
The fact that Dubinina was missing her tongue has been taken way out of proportion. Some say that it was cut off or ripped out while she was still alive. Others say it was eaten by scavengers after death, while some even claim the tongue was later found somewhere else. But I've read the medical reports and this is what it says. The diaphragm of the mouth and the tongue is missing. For example, the same section of the same report states, "Gaping orbits. The eyeballs are absent." Equally mysterious, right? Well, no, because the medical examiner does provide an explanation for both. Soft tissue injuries to the head are post-mortem changes to Dubinina's corpse, which was recently exposed to water prior to detection. And this was not even exclusive to Dubinina, as the 4 last bodies were all damaged due to the melting snow. Now, some claim that her tongue must have been removed while she was still alive. But can we really rule out Sasquatch? Pointed to the fact that she had about 100 grams of blood in her stomach.
Everything is radioactive, literally everything.
Only 3 articles of clothing exceeded or equaled that limit at 5,000
They were fucking nuked. Yeah, that's probably what it was.
And 9,900 DPMs.
Not really before we made nukes, FYI.
It wasn't due to the elements. There may
Bro,
be
you're just outright wrong. Wait, what?
Kolevatov had previously worked at a facility
You think
developing
nukes made
radiation?
materials,
and Krivonoshenko had previously worked at a top-secret plutonium production plant for nuclear weapons, and the 3 articles of radioactive clothing belonged to Kolevatov and Krivonoshenko. Around the time of the hikers' disappearance, numerous sources claim to have seen UFOs in the form of orbs of light moving across the night sky for a few seconds up to several minutes. The problem with UFO sightings is that they are, well, unidentified and often unverifiable as a result.
Which means they have to be true.
Then there's this. This is the very last photo taken with one of the hikers' cameras. It appears to be a photo of some type of light source taken in the middle of the night.
What if it actually is aliens?
The photo is about as undescriptive as the UFO it is claimed to depict. It could no doubt be a photo of a UFO, and it could no doubt be a photo of a candle, flashlight, fire, stove, or anything else. But let's assume that it is a photo of something in the night sky. What could it potentially be depicting? I can think of a few possibilities. A rocket, a piece of a rocket, man-made space debris during re-entry, a crashing aircraft, or perhaps a meteor. None of which would be too surprising given that this is the Soviet Union in the middle of the Cold War as well as the space race. So, and if the object had already been recovered...
Why do you keep fucking spamming this? Last story was Nightblood. Valentina had Nightblood and she didn't die from radiation. What the fuck is Nightblood? What the fuck are you talking about? Is you like a CW show or something? What is Nightblood? You've been spamming that for almost 40 minutes now since we finished that. And Valentina never died. It's actually fanfic. You have been spamming about fanfic. Is this your fanfic? Well, that was a good waste of time.
So, what happened? Why did they leave the tent? Why was it slashed open from the inside? How did some of them sustain such major injuries while the others simply succumbed to the cold? Why were so many of them underdressed?
Avalanche.
I think the biggest mystery is how it's been able to remain a mystery given the abundance of information. So after spending the better part of this month hiring multiple Russian translators reading through a massive amount of material ranging from theories about a KGB cover-up to a simple avalanche accident, this is what I believe to be the most credible.
Let's see if he gets it right, because there is an explanation now.
First of all, why would they leave the tent? That seems to be the most important missing piece of the puzzle. I would argue that the only thing that could make them leave would have to be an immediate threat inside the tent. If something was outside, such as an animal or a UFO, then there would be no reason to cut the tent open. There were no signs of an avalanche, however, they could have escaped believing an avalanche was tumbling towards them. The problem with that theory is that the footprints show them walking in a calm and orderly manner down the slope, as opposed to running away in panic. But once outside, they calmed down and made a conscious decision to walk down the slope. Now, take a look at this photo. The pipe sticking out of the tent entrance is the exhaust pipe of the internal stove. This was a completely unique and homemade design as the leader of the group had built the stove himself. We know they had used the stove on the night of the incident before the incident took place, as partially eaten pieces of fried ham and bacon were found inside the tent. I think that after disassembling the stove and removing the exhaust pipe, the embers inside the stove were accidentally reignited. If the exhaust pipe had been removed, the smoke would have filled the tent in seconds. As they attempted to get control of the flame, they cut a few holes at the top of the tent to vent the smoke.
Damn, this guy's a
That
genius.
didn't work and it became increasingly difficult to breathe. The side of the tent was slashed open and they all escaped in a state of panic. Then there's this photo, taken the day before the incident. The jacket has obviously been burned, but the question is how? It's possible that sparks from the stove had accidentally set the jacket aflame. Okay, so they make it outside and quickly realize what a terrible situation from the tree. 4 of them trigger a minor avalanche, taking them over the edge of a ravine with a drop of about 3 meters. As the bottom is filled with rocks and ice, they sustain lethal injuries. 3 of the other 5 hikers decide to head back for the tent, while the remaining 2 slowly freeze to death around a fading flame.
So, that theory makes a ton of sense, and I haven't kept up with the Dyatlov discoveries here, but like I said, I remembered recently there was a huge resurgence in information and explanations for this, so let me just check to make sure there's no pictures of bodies. We do not claim to have solved the Dyatlov Pass mystery, as no one survived to tell the story. That's just what a man who solved the mystery would say, being very coy. But we show the plausibility of the avalanche hypothesis. Official findings suggested a torrent of snow slabs or blocky chunks surprised the sleeping victims and pushed them to seek shelter at a nearby ridge. Unable to see more than 50 feet ahead, the hikers froze to death as they attempted to make their way back to their tent. Critics of the slab avalanche theory cite 4 main counter-arguments: the lack of physical traces of an avalanche, more than 9-hour gap between the hikers building their camp, a process that required cutting into the mountain to form a barrier against the wind, and their panicked departure, the shallow slope of the campsite, and the traumatic injuries sustained by the group. Asphyxiation is more common cause of death for avalanche victims. So this guy proved that a snow slab could have wiped through the area without leaving many traces. A slab avalanche, excuse me. Jesus, they really went in on this. Got a whole little fucking graph. Well, not graph, a whole little picture. Researchers unraveled the final piece of the puzzle, the hikers' unexplained injuries, with the help of a surprising source, Disney's 2013 film Frozen. I'm starting to doubt how accurate this conclusion may be. If Elsa did it, but I'll continue. He was so impressed by the movie's depiction of snow that he asked his creators to share their animation code with him. This simulation tool, coupled with data from cadaver tests conducted by General Motors in 1970 to determine what would happen to the human body when struck at different speeds, enabled the pair to show that heavy blocks of solid snow could have landed on the hikers as they slept, crushing their bones and causing injuries not typically associated with avalanches. If this was the case, the pair posits those who had sustained less serious blows likely dragged their injured companions out of the tent in the hopes of saving their lives. The slabs of snow would have had to be incredibly stiff and moving at a significant speed to inflict such violent injuries. He adds that the research doesn't explain why these people, after being hit by an avalanche, ran off without their clothes into the snow. True. For people to do that, they must have been terrified by something, and I assume one of the most likely things is one of them went crazy for some reason. Can't understand why else they would have behaved in that way unless they were trying to flee from someone who's been tracking them. Yeah, I guess that really wasn't as conclusive as I thought it would be. Oh, D.B. Cooper. Yes, I didn't even think of that. Maybe it was D.B. Cooper. To be honest, Lemmino's theory actually sounds more plausible. Who knows? That is very interesting. Very interesting indeed.